So, morning everybody. I'm Natalie Lynch. I'm the lead SARC manager for G4S. So I manage the Birmingham SARC, which is the one that you guys would have your clients be going into in the West Midlands region. So I don't know if you're all aware, we have about 47 SARCs around the country. G4S manage about 7 of those. We manage all the Midland ones, so Staffordshire, the West Midlands, Warwickshire and West Mercia are all covered by G4S. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about what the SARC is, what we do, who works there, how to refer into us, and then just spend a little bit of time getting any questions from you guys about clients that you might be seeing or have seen, just have a little chat. Please ask questions as we go. Don't just sit and wait. You can disturb me. I'm quite happy to be interrupted. Doesn't worry me in the slightest. So I'm going to do a little slideshow. I'm assuming this is going to work. Can everybody see that? Can someone come off mute and say yes or no?
Yes.
Will do. Beautiful. So I'm going to flick through this, and like I said, let's make it interactive. Otherwise, it's really dull. It's just me talking to myself. To ask questions, and that would be lovely. So, has anybody been in the SARC?
No, we haven't.
No.
Tumbleweed. And are you aware that our SARC has moved in the Midland region?
No.
So historically, our adult sites were at Walsall in Ida Road at the back of Manor Hospital, and the other one was at Castle Vale in Castle Vale, funnily enough, at the primary care centre there. We have been incredibly fortunate in that a brand new SARC has been built for us. This has been 3 years in the making. And the Midland Region SARC is now at Hodge Hill Primary Care Centre, which is just off Junction 5 on the M6. It is absolutely stunning. It is absolutely fabulous. We are really, really delighted in the service that we can now offer to people. So I've got some photographs of it on here on this slide somewhere, so I'll show you those when we get to it. But yeah, just so you're aware, so your clients from Walsall would be going down to the Hodge Hill SARC in Birmingham. It's a central SARC. It is stunning, honestly. So this is my little trigger warning fish. We are talking about rape. Rape affects something like 1 in 3 people. So there may be people on this call that have experienced rape in some way. So if we can just mind our language, how we sort of, refer to things, just be careful with each other because it can trigger things. If you're finding this tricky and you want to go, please just leave. It's absolutely fine. We can talk afterwards if we need to. So the outcome of this session is to help you to understand the role of the SARC, to understand what defines rape, to understand what defines sexual assault, to understand the difference between recent and non-recent reports and the referral pathways into the SARC. Does that sound like what you guys thought you were coming here for today?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm happy. Okay, so the role of the SARC is to create a safe and supportive environment offering medical care to those who've experienced sexual violence. We see everybody, all ages, all genders, from 18 plus. We can see 16 and 17-year-olds if they're put through the paediatric service first and they say it's reasonable. And we do have a paediatric service within the Midland region, which is run by Mountain Healthcare. Now, they're still currently based at Walsall at the Ida Road site as their acute site. They have hubs out in Staffordshire, West Mercia and Warwickshire. And they are currently having a new site built for them in Darlaston, I believe, so not far from where you guys are. We like to offer a choice of a medical examination. So the complainant leads on that. We explain what we can offer them and they decide if they want it or not. We do a general health screen. We evidence and document injuries. We recover trace evidence. We store DNA samples for self-referral victims, and we'll talk about self-referrals in a little bit. We offer emergency contraception. We offer HIV PEP and also hepatitis B vaccines. And then we offer onwards psychological support. People sometimes get a little bit confused about what our role is. We are a referral centre. So whilst we take clients in to do their forensic medical examinations, everything else we refer out. So all our pathways are in place into the local ISVA groups and into the gun clinics, mental health services, and we'll do those onward referrals for them. So if somebody isn't coming into us for a forensic medical examination, we still want to hear from them because, like I said, we're the kind of the hub, and we'll make those onward referrals for everybody else. So what is rape? Rape can only be committed by a man because it is the legal definition of rape is when a man puts his penis inside the vagina, anus or mouth of another person without their consent. Were you all aware of that? So 66% of rapes are carried out by someone known to the complainant. That's really difficult, particularly if you're looking at safeguarding, because when it's known to the person, it's likely a member of their family or a relative of some description. In female cases where the perpetrator is known, 45% were raped by their partner or ex-partner. So we're looking at a lot of domestic violence. And in male cases where the perpetrator is known, 39% have been raped by the partner or ex-partner. So it's not really different in that stat between men and women. So what's sexual assault? Sexual assault can be committed by men or women against men or women. So sexual assault is objects or body parts such as vibrators or fingers being inserted into the other person's anus or vagina without consent. Being made to sexually stimulate themselves or insert objects into their vagina or anus when they don't want to, and being touched in a sexual way by someone else under or over clothing. Has anybody heard of spooning? And it is not the nice cuddle.
No.
Are there any prison workers on this call? I think it was a probation officer, wasn't there? So spooning is normally in prisons, and it's the act of physically putting a spoon into someone's anus to retrieve drugs. So spooning is not technically a sexual act, and for the purposes of commissioning, it wouldn't normally sit under SARC. But because of the emotional damage that spooning causes, it's quite a horrific act. It can be really quite violent and quite damaging. We do see them in SARC. So we'll have prisoners that will come out to us for their forensic medical examinations as a result of spooning, because we've got the kit and caboodle to get in and actually document injuries for them as well, and just check what's going on. So yeah, we get spooning. Has anybody heard of Locards principle?
No.
Okay, so every contact leaves a trace. If we're doing demonstrations with you guys in a room, which is what used to happen on training, we'd take a tennis ball and we'd rub the tennis ball discreetly on the back of a few people's clothing as we walk around the room. We'd then go around with a light, like a UV light, and we could demonstrate the strands from the tennis ball actually on people's clothing, which was always really quite cool. We used to do the handshake. So I'd come and shake somebody's hand and I'd get you to shake a few people's hand, and then we'd work out how far down the DNA had got. It is incredible in the years I've been working in criminal justice, quite how far we've come in looking at DNA. So when I started in 2007, I think, in criminal justice, we were working on, it was DNA 8, I think. We're now on DNA 24. And that looks at the number of strands it maps against DNA. So all the time, our ability to find even tiny particles of DNA is getting more and more clever, basically. So it is so important when we think about the SARC and the forensics. We're looking at what's been touched and where we might potentially find DNA. So a little bit later on in this, I'll give you some examples of what you can look for if somebody discloses rape to you, what you can be asking them to say for us down at the SARC. So the police will normally do an early evidence kit. So if police are called, they will do an early evidence kit, which is a urine sample, the tissue used in the wiping after or before the urine sample, and a mouth rinse. So the things that we would be interested in them bringing in to the SARC would be clothing, especially the underwear. And we don't really want the frilly underwear that went out in. We want the pair that they wore immediately afterwards, because we're looking for seepage. Possibly a condom, toilet tissues. Toothbrushes are incredible sources of evidence. If somebody's had an oral attack and they've gone home and cleaned their teeth, I want that toothbrush. I will give them a new toothbrush, but I really want the toothbrush. Sanitary products, something like 1 in 4 of the people that we see are having a period, which totally makes sense if you imagine that a woman bleeds 1 in 4 weeks. Food and drink, and sometimes even vomit and stool. If they've been already raped and forced to swallow and then they've vomited, that sick might actually have semen in it. So I know it's a really weird thing to ask, but we'll say if there's vomit lying around, give it to us. We'll have that. Thank you very much. And stool, again, same thing. If they've been anally raped and they've ejaculated, the stool might have semen in there. Does any of that shock you? Does any of that make you go, wow, didn't know that? Or is that all what you would expect?
I'd never thought about it before, but it all totally makes sense, yeah.
So when we ask people to bring things in, if you've got somebody in front of you and they've disclosed to you and you're going to bring them in, and they've got a toilet, like a toilet, I can't speak today, toothbrush, get them to pop it in a sandwich bag. If they're bringing in pants, get them to pop it in a sandwich bag, preferably all these things separately, and we'll collect all these at the SARC. This is assuming, of course, it's a self-referral. If the police are getting involved, they'll take all these things. So we're looking at securing the possible crime scene. Somebody's just disclosed to you and you need to think about where this happened and what you can tell the police, or if they're coming into us as a self-referral, what we need to think about. So where did the assault occur and when? What was the weather? Is that an issue? We think about contaminations to other DNA. So we'll ask the client if they've had any other consensual sex in the 10 days prior to the assault. So just think about what else might be of interest. CCTV, any witnesses, bedding, clothing, the alleged perpetrator. So if the alleged perpetrator is in police custody, then they are a crime scene, and the medics on site there are going to do potentially a medical examination on them. And the complainant, so the person who's saying that they've been raped, they are our main crime scene. They're the person that we're going to get the most evidence from usually. And in SARC, we'll be taking DNA from them. So the following advice should be given to the complainant. So if somebody comes to you and says, I've been raped, this is what you're going to have a chat with them about. So prior to forensic medical examination, discourage the person from eating or drinking anything, including non-essential medication. Discourage them from washing, including their hair and brushing their teeth, showering and bathing. Now, if somebody is absolutely desperate to have a shower and they are distressed about needing to shower, let them shower, but ask them not to douche. Water doesn't travel uphill. So as long as they've showered and they haven't got too heavy-handed down below, I can probably still find DNA for them. Going to the toilet or discarding any sanitary products. Again, we're thinking about seepage. So there may be seepage onto a tampon, for example. We would want to collect that. Removing, washing, discarding or destroying clothes worn at the time of the incident. Now you can imagine somebody wants to burn everything that they've been worn, throw it through the washing machine. I totally get that. If a pair of pants has gone through the washing machine, but they are absolutely certain which pair of pants they are, I still want them. Has anybody here got a dog? No dogs. Anybody here?
Dog.
Is it a male dog?
Female.
Oh, you're lucky. Anyone here sleep in hotels?
Occasionally.
I'm going to ruin it all for you forever. Semen lasts 9 washes.
Oh.
So if you're washing your dog's bedding in your washing machine with your pants, guess what you've got?
Oh.
It's quite horrible, isn't it?
Is that even on a hot wash?
Oh yeah. Makes no difference, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Somebody's desperate to get that one through.
Yeah, those of you with teenage boys are lucky. Right. Okay, so if we look at forensic windows, we talk about forensic windows in the SARC. Have you heard of forensic windows? Have you heard them discussed?
A little bit.
So when we know that a case is coming into us, we need to consider the forensic window, because we need to work out whether this is a historic case or an acute case. So when we talk about forensic windows, in the vagina, DNA is likely to still be lurking around up to 7 days. Okay. If you've got somebody who's lying in bed in a nursing home, for example, who is bedbound, it's potential that there's still DNA there up to 10 days. And we would consider that. But for a normal average person, up to 7 days, we would definitely be going in to look for DNA up to 7 days. In the anus, it's up to 3 days. But penis, so for example, somebody's had their penis sucked, or a female has penetrated themselves on a guy's penis, we can potentially find DNA up to 3 days. For oral, it's up to 2 days. Digital is fingers, that's up to 2 days, and the skin is 2 days. Injuries, kind of a little bit longer, so we would still consider doing a forensic examination on somebody for injuries up to 2 weeks, but that would probably, we wouldn't be taking samples after that. After these periods of times, we would be looking at documentation of injuries, which still forms part of the forensic examination. And then blood and urine samples can be taken up to 3 days. what might change some of these times? What might affect some of these?
Temperature, being outdoors, something like that.
Go more logical.
What about if people don't know when it happened exactly, or?
Yeah, that happens. But what might affect?
Like we've discussed before, bathing, washing, yeah.
So if somebody's scrubbed top to bottom, I'm going to struggle. Okay, now it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, but it might limit what I can offer that person in terms of the samples that I can take. But we would still absolutely consider it. So recent assaults are classed as assaults that have taken place in the previous 10 to 14 days. However, an acute assault is 7 days. So acute and recent is slightly different, and what we can offer is slightly different. DNA evidence reduces over the first 7 days after the assault. If it's after 7 days and they don't think they've got injuries, it is not likely we will bring them into the SARC. We will do everything else for them, because there's a little adage, it's called the swab is not the job. And in SARC world, there's nothing more true than the swab is not the job. It's about the client's physical, sexual and mental health. It's all the onward referrals and the safeguarding that we can do to ensure that that person is safeguarded and on the path to recovery, which doesn't necessarily include a forensic medical examination, if that makes sense. So different parts of the body and different types of assaults have different timeframes, which we've just discussed. And complainants of assault might have physical injuries, and these can be external or internal, and they can be seen up to 14 days after the assault. What is one of the problems with injuries to the vagina in terms of our timescales?
Is it the healing process?
Yeah, they heal incredibly quickly. And I think some of you here look after children, don't you? So children's vaginas heal incredibly quickly. So time is of the essence for us to be able to document this stuff. So people will get excitable and they will want to get these children and adults in quickly if they've got injuries. They do heal incredibly quickly, which is great for the client, but not so great in terms of our evidence, because we really want to be able to document those properly. So for recent assaults, the forensic examiner will assess the complainant, that's the victim or the client, I call them. We don't often call them victims. There's the whole victim survivor thing. Some people want to be victims, some people want to be survivors, and it's that language thing again, it's really tricky. So I tend to go client, because for us they are. They're not really patients because they're not poorly. So the examiner is going to review the client, they're going to review the forensic evidence, see what's available. They'll agree with the police and the complainant what samples will be taken. Complainant will be checked for injuries. For injuries in non-intimate areas, they'll be photographed by the police as evidence. But anything that's covered by a bra or pants is considered an intimate injury. We have an amazing bit of kit called a colposcope in SARC. It's like a great big machine that we can take digital images of basically images of injuries and bruising and stuff intimately, and then we preserve those for court should it need to go to court. We don't take those images into court. It would be incredibly rare or unheard of even for a judge to demand that they're played in court. So when we take those images, they are only viewed by expert witnesses and examiners. So they can be shared with the defence for the defence expert witness to look at, but they are quite locked down. They don't contain anybody's photo, their face, their name, anything like that is on there. It's all coded. So we spend a lot of time explaining to our clients actually what that image is used for and how we will safeguard that image for them. Because some people get a little bit freaked out about actually that their image is going to be out there, and it's genuinely not. The discs don't lead SARC unless they're going into long-term storage or they're going to an expert witness. Examinations take place in a forensically clean room. Everyone that goes in the room has to wear scrubs and gloves to prevent contamination of evidence, and we really limit the number of people that go in those rooms. So it is the examiner, the crisis worker, the client, and then possibly a supporter for the clients. If they've brought a relative or a friend and they particularly want them to come in, we'll get them scrubbed up and they'll come in with us as well. Where we can, we don't take them in just to keep the background DNA low. So non-recent assaults are limited, where there's limited or no forensic evidence on the complainant. So this is the over 7 days. Normally we say non-recent assaults are 3 weeks. It's a really grey area in describing these things. Let your examiner guide you. They'll tell you where it is on the client that's sat in front of you. Forensic evidence might be available on clothing if it hasn't been washed. It might still be, as we've talked about, on your pants, even if they have been washed. The complainant can be interviewed by the police and a statement can be made, and CCTV can be viewed to corroborate statements. So again, we're going back to the swabs, not the job. It is an entire story. So we're looking at what is the client telling us? What do we know? What can we prove? Some of that is us in the SARC taking our little bit of evidence. A lot of it is the police doing their bit. If somebody is disclosed to you guys, you might be asked to write a statement. So just remember, it's contemporaneous. If they've disclosed to you, write it down, keep that safe. So the forensic medical examination, initially the examiner will ask questions about the complainant's general health, their current medication, and then give some information about the assault in guide to the forensic examination. The complainant will then move into the forensic examination suite with the crisis worker and examiner, where they'll be checked top to toe for injuries and appropriate forensic swabs can be offered to be taken in a clean environment. We are absolutely led by our clients. It's normally a good hour before we actually even get them into the examination room because we're doing our medical examination and then we are asking them what they want. So we really try and just put them back in control, let them be re-empowered to make choices. I did a lot of training a couple of years ago before we had the pandemic with CPS in Birmingham. And I had 30 lawyers at various points through the SARC and I showed them all a proctoscope. And there were some wide-eyed looks of horror. And I was like, so when we tell you that the client has declined to have a proctoscope, this could be the reason why. So it's really important that the client understands what we want to do for them and that they have the choice to pick and choose the bits that they want and the bits that they don't want. And that's absolutely fine. So aftercare. So the SARC is going to ensure that the complainant is offered medication as appropriate. So we will give, according to the BASH guidelines, Pepsi, which is for to prevent HIV, emergency hormonal contraception, so the morning after pill, and hepatitis B vaccines. There are time limits for these things. So HIV PEP, it's a really specific group of people that we can give this to. We work through a pro forma, and we can only give it up to 72 hours because it just doesn't work after 72 hours. Emergency hormonal contraception we can give up to 5 days, and we can make emergency referrals into the gum clinic for somebody to have a coil fitted if that's the appropriate BHC for them. And every single person that walks through the door of the SARC can be offered hepatitis B vaccine as per the BASH guidelines. So it'd be really common if somebody's had contact with us that they've had a Hep B vaccine and that they're going to be referred into their gum clinic for the following 2. The SARC will also complete full risk assessments prior to the complainant leaving the SARC to identify issues around safeguarding, and will make onward referrals to the relevant counselling and ISFA services in the area. So some of the onward referrals that we make, and this is not an exhaustive list, are safeguarding, ISFA, sexual health, mental health, GP, substance misuse, counselling, social services, MASHs, MAROCs. The list is honestly, it's endless. We do an awful lot of work with colleges as well. So if somebody's at college or sixth form college, we link it. There's always a safeguarding link within the colleges and the universities, and we link in with them to support that client going forward. Potentially they might need extra time for exams, and we make sure that that support is in place for them in those places of education. That's obviously with their consent. Now these are adults, and adults, as we all know, have the right to make unwise choices. So for us, it's about looking past the client. We have to be professionally curious. We're looking at who else is involved in this. Okay, does that make sense? You're all safeguarding based, aren't you? So I'm sure all of you are professionally curious and will know exactly where I'm going with this. So there's 3 routes into the SARC for 18+. The first one is the police. So if you've got someone that wants to report to the police, they can, and the police can report into us using that number. Self-referrals. So if somebody wants to self-refer to us and they go online and say, I've been raped, they're going to find our website and it will give them that number, and that's how the self-referral will refer in. And if you've got somebody sat in front of you, you're also going to use that phone number. So does everybody know what a self-referral is as opposed to a police referral and what that looks like?
Not really.
Good, fine, not a problem. So if you ring 999 and say, I've been raped, the police are going to send somebody out to you and they are going to take control of the process. So they will take the first accounts from you, they'll take your sample, your early evidence kit, and they will book you into the SARC, and they will bring you to the SARC and they will take you home, and then they will start the investigation with a view to prosecuting. If you've been raped and you absolutely have no idea what you want, you can self-refer. So self-referrals can ring us directly on that number, and they will speak to a crisis worker who will ask them questions off of pro forma to try and work out what the client needs. What does that client want? And the reason that a self-referral is so clever is that we can take their evidence, so we can bring them in, we will do the first account on site, the same the police would do it, our crisis workers will do it. We'll give them exactly the same forensic medical examination that they would get if the police had brought them in, and we will store their evidence on site for up to 2 years. So they sign to say that they've got 2 years to make a decision, otherwise we have to bin it. But even if we bin their swabs, remember, swab's not the job. We have all the other evidence that we've collected in that examination, including the first account. So they then have 2 years to make a decision as to what they want. In the meantime, we will refer them into all those referrals that you've just seen to make sure that they are on the road to recovery in terms of their physical, mental and sexual health, and they have time. And quite often, when you see people after they've been raped, for the first few days, they are literally mind blown. It's like, and it's really difficult for people to make decisions, particularly if the person who raped them is somebody that they knew. With our self-referrals, we will always look at the account, who they've told us that they've raped, and obviously we will break confidentiality if we need to, but we will explain to them what that looks like and why. It is really well taken up in the West Midlands. About 40% of our cases are self-referrals, and West Midlands Police absolutely understand the benefit of self-referrals in terms of physical, sexual, mental health, and the fact that some people then do go on and become police cases. So yeah, we are really lucky in the Midlands that the police support that fully. As part of the self-referral, we could potentially offer somebody an anonymous submission of their sample. So for example, somebody doesn't know whether they want to report, but they want potentially to know if there was semen found on the swab. So we will ask the police to review it. The police will look at an anonymised their first account, and they make the decision. It's not up to us. And if the samples were taken within the first 5 days, and that's their cut-off for self-referrals, they potentially will pick a sample. They'll take one. So they'll come and take one sample off us, they'll go away and test it, and then they'll come back and let us know if there was any DNA found on there, if there was a match to anything. Sometimes that's enough for a client to say, yeah, I want to report to the police now. We can't promise them that those samples will be tested because it's down to the police. It's for them to make that decision. We can offer anonymous intelligence to the police. So they might say, I don't want my samples tested, but you can give the account. Normally that will be around a stranger rape. And they want that intelligence out there of who that person was, what they looked like. So again, the anonymous first account will go across to the police for intel. And we obviously also subscribe to the Ugly Mugs. So if we've got any sex workers in and they've given us some intel, we'll transfer that information across to Ugly Mugs. Have you all heard of Ugly Mugs? Imagine you all have.
I haven't, sorry.
And that's fine. So Ugly Mugs is a national organisation that was set up years ago now to help protect sex workers around the country. So if you are aware of an assault on a sex worker and there is a particular MO, you can upload it to Ugly Mugs and they will send out a warning to all sex workers on their register that work in the local area. It's a really brilliant protective tool for our working men and women.
I take it you can find out how to contact them online.
Just online, yeah. Go in and type in ugly mugs, but it's a clever little system to help protect people, particularly if you've got the same person going around with the same MO doing the same thing. It just gives people the heads up so that they can take some steps to protect themselves against that. Professional referrals would be you guys. So if somebody disclosed to you and they're sat in front of you, you could make a referral in on that number for them. We would have to speak to the client, but you could do the introduction. And for some people, that is as much as they would need from you. They're sat in front of you for whatever reason they've decided to disclose to you. You can offer to put them through as a self-referral and help them to just do that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our SARC. It's absolutely stunning. So this room on the top left is one of the pre-examination rooms. So we'd probably spend about an hour in this room with the clients. They are fairly bare because everything in here is DNA cleaned. These rooms are sealed. So everything has to withstand hideous chemicals that we splash all over it at the end of every case. The second one is one of our 2 pods. So that big machine in the corner is the colposcope. That's the machine that we take the digital images on. It's all non-touch. All the walls are hard rock. Honestly, it's fabulous in there. And then the bottom picture is a picture of one of our post rooms. So when it's all done, we take them into a nice room. There's a fluffy blanket on the back. They can get snuggled up. We feed them. Can dim the lights in there. Just spend some time with them doing the risk assessments. And that adrenaline, it's just like crashes out of them, and it's horrible. You can see them. They're so exhausted by the end of it. So we just have a little bit of quiet time with them in there before we let them leave. So the SARC now is based at the Hodge Hill Primary Care Centre. The entrance is at the back through the car park, and we have our own separate entrance into the SARC. It's quite well signposted. And if you go onto Horizon SARC website, it will show you the back entrance as a picture of how you get into the back. Oh, we're done. That's not bad, is it? 40 minutes. Any questions? Try and end this. How do I escape?
Can I ask a question about success
You
in
can.
prosecutions?
Yeah, I don't know how to get you guys back. I don't know what I've done. Oh, there we are. You're back. Yeah, it's horrendous.
Okay.
So I think it's about 3% actually get a prosecution of all cases across the UK. So if you think about what I keep harping on about, swab's not the job, and I talk about the physical, sexual, mental health of these clients and their recovery. Okay.
Yeah.
Criminal justice outcome is absolutely the cherry on the cake. And whilst it should be the thing that we're looking to attain at all times, we recognise that that's unlikely because of the way our criminal justice system works and the fact that very often in these cases it's one word against another.
Even if you've got DNA?
If you've got DNA, they are likely to prosecute unless the alleged perpetrator is saying it was consensual. So if it was consensual, it's one word against another.
Okay.
Which is awful.
Yeah.
But then it's everything else. It's not just the swab, it's the rest of the story. What other evidence do you have? Are there text messages? Is there CCTV? Were there witnesses? Like, what is the story? I had a client in Derby quite a few years ago now, a young girl, she's about 19, and she came to the SARC in the middle of the night with her uncle. And there was a lot of eye rolling because I think the police knew this girl of old. There was a lot of, the whole, this is a load of rubbish, we don't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. So the story that this young lady told me was that she'd been in a park in the dark. Somebody had come up behind her, forced her to her knees, taken her trousers down, forced her to her knees and raped her from behind. So when we got her changed for her examination and she came into the medical room, the first thing I clocked was mud on her knees and she'd been wearing jeans. I was like, that's interesting. When I came to do the internal examination and I parted her labia, I was faced with moss and mud. Okay, so these are really significant in terms of DNA because they're able to take those, put those as samples, and they're then able to match those to the place in the park where this girl is saying that this assault happened. Yeah. If
Yeah.
they can confirm that she was in that park at that time, then they need to go and start looking at CCTV. Do you see how that picture might add up and how it starts to become an investigation? So it's fascinating. You know, as an examiner, I'm literally there to take evidence. I don't decide who's right, who's not right. I'm literally just there to support the victim and make sure that our samples.
Is the problem with the criminal justice system then getting it through CPS?
Can be.
Yeah,
CPS will only prosecute on something where they are
confident.
very certain that they're going to get a positive outcome in court, and that's because court's so awful. Would you want to take pain something that's awful? Sorry, somebody spoke.
Sorry, I just want to jump in there. I was just waiting for the space. I was acting jury service about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was an alleged rape case on sexual assault case there. It was actually rape. There's going to be a case on there, and it was basically sort of, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was like how it had got through the CPS. We have no idea. It was like, and the frustration that you must get when a case like that. I mean, obviously I can't go into the case, but when the case was there, it was so flimsy and so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's other cases there that are so much more need, or CPS are just basically washing their hands and telling there's not enough evidence to put that through.
Yeah.
Must be so frustrating for somebody in your position.
Well, I spent 8 years working police custody before I came across to SARC. I've done SARC for this is my 7th year in SARC. So I did suspects of rape for a long time before I came and did complainants of rape. So I've seen it very much from both sides. I would say there aren't many people that lie about being raped. I'd say that's really quite unusual. But I can see why many people feel they haven't raped somebody. It's really difficult, and I'm glad that I'm just the examiner and I just take the evidence and don't have to make any decisions about it. It's a really difficult arena.
Do you have any? I coach an adult delivery group, and we're doing a bit of data analysis on what's going on in the adult world, I guess. Yep. Around exploitation. Do you have any data that you could share for the borough on numbers?
Yeah. So we do a dashboard. There is postcode data on there. So there's like local authority. You're Walsall, aren't you?
Yeah.
So they will tell you the number of clients that came through on that area, but it won't necessarily break it down to CSE in that area, if that makes sense. But I'm really happy to share the dashboard with you and you can play with it.
That'd be good. Thank you.
If I leave my email address in the chat, and then if anybody wants to contact me afterwards.
That'd be great.
And I've just seen all these lovely questions in here. Okay, that's all who you guys are. That's lovely. Okay. What about historic assaults? So, Andrea Price, you asked about historic assaults. Just go and tell me what that was that you were looking for.
It was just looking for other services that are about, really. That is it just really the Black Country Women's Aid that we can use, or are there other services quite local?
So we are, because we're a commission service, there's certain places that we have to use. So we use Black Country Women's Aid and RSVP. You've obviously got South Staff's Women's Aid, if they're further north.
And it's a male. It's a male that I'm talking about. Sorry, so I know like Black Country Women's Aid do males, but yeah. I'm just thinking in there. This assault happened probably 13 years ago, and they're still living the after effects now. It's still a thing of.
Did he ever come through SARC?
Sorry.
Did he ever come through SARC?
He was 7 when it happened.
So
and it was a situation of 4 boys and a no male of 15. So it actually all went through children's. And there was never really that follow-up in that era. He's now 23. I
would definitely say refer him back into us and let's do some onward referrals for this chap. The problem that you've got is rape doesn't go away. Okay, so that, you know, when we talk about ACEs in kids and we talk about the cradle to get to grave, it's exactly the same thing with rape and sexual assault. So you'll have periods of time where people are absolutely fine, and then there may be periods in life where they just completely fall apart, and then they get back on their horse and they carry on again. So we're always here. We will never go away. There will always be somebody for them. So I would definitely recommend you get him to contact the SARC, and we can do some onward referrals for this chap if he's finding that he needs some counselling.
You definitely, yeah, definitely. It's something that's there for, you know, as you say, forever. And it's that conversation with somebody to sort of, you know, I think a lot of the hatred is the fact that, yeah, we got, this person was found guilty. Yes, this person did do what they did do, and they did it to 4 or 5 others. But it's the fact that the criminal justice system then just moved him to a borough on the outskirts of Walsall, and that she didn't actually receive any custodial. And it's that hatred, it's the whole thing really. But it's even it's the last part of it. He's found guilty, but he's still not had the punishment almost in his mind of what he did.
It's horrible. It is horrible.
And I think the fact that family is still local, it's that every so often it sort of comes back and bites him.
Yeah, not much fun. Get him referred in to us and we'll see where we can send them.
Okay, thank you.
Has anybody else got anything that they want to talk about? Cases that they've been involved in, things that have worried them? Do you all feel that you would be comfortable if somebody disclosed rape to you? Would you know what to do?
More so now.
Be more confident now. I can't say I'd be comfortable, no, but I'd be more confident.
I did a one-day update with a group of GPs in Solihull quite a few years ago now, and there were about 66 of them in there, and I said, look, let's do somebody walked into your room and sat down and just told you they'd been raped, and there was just this sea of horrified faces. It was really funny. I was like, that face? Don't do that. If somebody is disclosing to you, they're basically usually tipping their toe in the water to see what reaction they get, and the reaction that you give will either cause them to create more waves or they'll back off and just let everything settle again. So if you can put on your best poker face, not be horrified, not be shocked, just be quietly attentive and let them disclose, and then work out where their closest SARC is and get them referred in. That, trust me, is the best thing that you can do. If they've disclosed to you, it's usually probably because they don't want to disclose to the police. So remember that self-referral option is always there. Doesn't matter if it was a week ago, 5 weeks ago, 15 years ago, they can always come back into us.
Is it via telephone then, just only via telephone?
Yeah. So there's a call centre that will answer the phone 24/7, 365. There will be a crisis worker on duty 24/7, 365. Our SARC is available to clients 24/7, 365. The only provisor to that is that our self-referral clients, we try and get them finished and gone before about 11 o'clock at night if they're coming into us as a case, because we obviously don't have police to escort them home. So we won't normally see a self-referral client overnight. It would normally be during sort of the daytime hours or early evening. Any other questions? Has that been helpful to you?
Definitely.
Yes,
Definitely,
thank you.
thank you.
Anything horrified you?
All of it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. So with the children, all I'd say is I think there's some social workers on here. Is that correct? Who are safeguarding. I've heard over the years people say, well, we wouldn't want to put somebody through that. We wouldn't want to put a child through that. I really want to dispel that myth to as many people as I can get that out to. If you come into the SARC while a child is having a forensic medical examination and sit upstairs, what you hear in that SARC is peals of laughter. If you come into the SARC when I'm doing an examination, you'll hear giggling. We have a real laugh with the clients where we can and where it's appropriate, because that is part of that person becoming normal again, feeling normal, feeling that things are okay. So we bring them in at a time when it's really horrendous, when we make sure that they understand what's going to happen, make sure they understand what's going to happen next, and we package them up ready to go back out and face the world. When they leave us, the next day, they're normally absolutely, again, completely mind blown. They can't remember a thing that's been said to them or what's been offered or what happened. So a member of our team the next working day is going to call them and go back through with them, just check that they're okay and say, okay, this is what's happened. This is what we've done. This is what's going to happen next. Because that allows them to understand that they're not alone in this and that they know how to move forward. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome. I think we're probably done. It's been lovely talking to you all, even though I've just rabbited on in the background. If any, I've given you my email address. If anybody's got any questions, let me know. Absolutely happy to respond to those and see what I can do about answering them. I might be able to answer them. And yeah, the feedback is always useful. So if you get a feedback form, it'd be really great for you to fill it in, just so that if I'm asked to do this again, I can change things if I need to.
Would it be possible for us to get the slides, or?
Yeah, I'm going to send those across to Kellyanne. She said she's going to send them out to you all.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely
Thank
to
you very
talk.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you very